Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Delta Report. Glad to have you guys here this Monday, the 19th. 19th of June, 2023. Thank you for tuning in. Listen, there's an old type of technology, been around a long time, that could be what takes us out. Seriously. Back during the United States Civil War, they were using a technology that now might be able to actually, that same technology that they were using in the Civil War, might be other countries like China or Russia could possibly take out the whole of the United States of America with this technology. And it's very hard to fight against. Let me explain what this technology is. Here you go. Stratospheric balloons. Now, they're already inventing them, and they're going to use them for things like high-speed internet, military-wide area time, cyber electromagnetic intelligence, and different environments. But here's the thing, guys. You've all heard of the jet stream. It's a river of air that flows across North America. Now, they launched a balloon, China did, not that long ago. You guys all know about the balloon that China launched. And they launched it up into that river of air that goes across North America. And they shot that balloon down just after it passed off into the Atlantic Ocean. It passed the 12-mile limit. They shot it down. They used a jet, and jet went up to the altitude of the balloon and shot the balloon down. What I want to tell you guys about this is that jets have something called a ceiling. Their engines, now the pilot, they can provide the pilot with oxygen at almost any altitude. And the cockpit, nowadays they have pressurized cockpits and things like that, so, and pressurized flight suits and oxygen for the pilot. So the pilot's not the big problem. He could probably go up actually into space. But it's the engines on the jet. When a jet gets too high, possibly 40,000 feet or beyond 40,000 feet, the engines require oxygen. They don't carry their own oxygen with them like a rocket engine. Jet engines require oxygen to mix with the fuel to burn. Otherwise, they'll flame out at a certain altitude. And then the jet falls out of the sky. And I'm not sure, don't quote me on this, but I think it's somewhere around 40 to 60,000 feet. Jets flame out. They can't go any higher. A spacecraft can go higher. But here's the thing I want to point out. Those missiles that they used to shoot down the Chinese balloon, because that was a lower altitude balloon, it was like a 30,000 foot balloon, 40,000 feet long in there. They were able to fly the jet up to the altitude of the balloon and then shoot it down with one of those missiles on the jet. The missiles that are on the jet are very, very similar. They are rockets, and they do have a burn time. Around 5 or 6 seconds they burn. But they're made for going sideways. That's why some of the missiles are called Sidewinder. Because they fly off the jet, generally off the wing, and they're made to hit something that's up there in the jet's altitude. And so it wasn't a problem for them to shoot that balloon down, that Chinese-made balloon. But these stratospheric balloons can go 80,000 feet or higher. So a jet can only go up to a ceiling of like 40, maybe 60,000 feet. These balloons can go like 120,000 feet high. So the jet, say he goes up to the highest he can go, maybe 60,000. He's still looking up, and the balloon is still 60,000 feet higher than he is. So he fires off his missile. Those missiles cannot climb very far. The farthest they can climb is maybe 10,000 feet higher. So he fires off his missile. It goes up to, say, 70,000 feet. But the balloon's up at 120,000. How do you hit it? You can't. It's too high. Now, these balloons can be equipped with modern technology. These balloons can be equipped with something called an electromagnetic pulse device. They can drop that device like a dart. They can carry it at the bottom of the balloon, and they can let it fall like a dart. So it gets to the optimum altitude. So say the balloon's up 120,000 feet. Doesn't even have to come into the United States' airspace. They could detonate it well off the west coast of the United States, because the electromagnetic pulse will travel for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles. You get the whole west coast of the United States. What does the electromagnetic pulse weapon do? Say it falls like a dart from a 120,000 foot balloon, and when it gets down about 40,000 feet, bang! It's a thermonuclear weapon, a small one, a very small thermonuclear weapon, and it releases an electromagnetic pulse. And say that pulse were to travel for like 800 miles. They wouldn't even have to get it onshore off the United States. Now, that balloon that come from China traveled all the way across the United States until it exited the United States into the Atlantic waters off the coast, I believe it was South Carolina. It flew off the 12-mile limit, and then they shot it down with the jet. This is like a Trojan weapon, these balloons. Let's take a look at some pictures of these balloons, these high altitude balloons. There's so many different types and prototypes that they're developing right now. These are new weapon systems that are cheap, very hard to hit. Well, you say, well, why don't you just shoot them down with a laser? If they're so dangerous, if they could knock out our North American electrical grid, why don't the U.S. just shoot them down with a laser? Because lasers, when they're going through the Earth's atmosphere, tend to spread. They tend to fan out. They don't stay completely intact as they travel through the Earth's orbit. It acts like a parabolic mirror effect, the layers surrounding the Earth. It tends to spread a laser out as it's traveling into space. And by the time it gets up to 120,000 feet, it's dispersed enough where it wouldn't cut a hole in the balloon any longer. Why don't you just shoot them down with like a Patriot missile system? Again, these type of systems are more set up for lower altitude than 120,000 feet. It really would not be that easy to hit a balloon at 120,000 feet, especially now. Here's a big factor I wanted to point out to you guys about these balloons and the payloads that they carry. One of the big factors I wanted to point out is winds. Down near the ground, the winds are slow. When you get up about 20 or 30,000 feet, you hit the jet stream, the winds are fast. Okay? The winds move fast. And the wind's what carries a balloon. It is your fuel system. Like with a rocket, your fuel system is on board the rocket engines full of fuel, the actual fuel. But the fuel system for a balloon is the wind. The wind is what carries them. And there's oceans of wind up above the Earth. They flow like rivers, the winds. It flows like a river, and it's very fast. The jet stream can travel over 100 miles an hour, and it carries the balloon at that speed across America. At lower altitudes, the winds are slower. When you move up above the jet stream to a higher altitude, the wind slows down again. But when you get up way higher, up 120,000 feet, the winds pick up and they're even stronger than they are in a jet stream. And they can move the balloon across America with significant speed. So not only are you dealing with an object at 120,000 feet that's moving very, very, very quickly, and it's also very high. Talk about hard to hit. Do you know what a balloon at 120,000 feet would look like if you were on the ground? Even if it's as big as a bus? It would look like such a tiny little speck that you'd barely be able to see it, if you could see it at all. You probably wouldn't even see it if you're looking up at it, unless you had a spotter's binoculars or some sort of a a telephoto lens on a camera or something like that. You probably wouldn't even be able to see it with the naked eye. It would be so small, such a small little dot against the sky. But to think such a small little dot against the sky could knock out the entire North American power grid in one boom, or should I say pop, bang, up there. And the next thing you know, everything goes dead. Now what would we do? Because they've got these enormously large you've probably driven by them on your way to work or whatever. You see, it's called a substation. And they generally got a chain link fence around it because they don't want anybody getting in because it's high voltage. People just don't notice them, but they're dotted around the countryside. They're called power substations. And they have all these big, giant, enormous transformers in there. That's what this EMP would fry. It would fry those transformers, and they cannot be replaced easily. In fact, it would take at least 10 years to replace all the transformers across America if they all got knocked out in an EMP. Now, how would we go without power for 10 years? I'm not even going to ask that question. How are we going to go without power for a year? No, hold on. I'm not even going to ask that question. How are we going to go without power for 4 months? What would 4 months look like of no electricity in the United States of America? An entire grid down scenario. Well, you know, the first few days wouldn't be that bad. Most people would be waiting for the power to come back on. First few days. And most people would stay in their homes for the first week, or even 2. But after 2 weeks went by, people would grow very restless. They'd be hungry, they would need medication, they would need food, they would need water. And sorry, it's not coming. After probably about 3 weeks, you'd see certain groups of people gathering together to loot, pillage, and rob. What other way can I put it? And a lot of people would be, after 3 weeks went by, especially people that aren't prepared, would be already on the first stages of early stages of actually dying. I don't know any other way of putting it, but if they didn't have an adequate source of food and water, after about 3 weeks went by, and if they didn't have a way of obtaining food and water, these would be very desperate people indeed, but they might be so low on energy that they can't do anything anyway. And who's going to help them? See, we think in our modern society, just our way of thinking is you're going to get help. If somebody, especially in America, if they need help and they haven't got food and water and they're on the verge of dying, go get help. But when it's everybody in America's in that same boat, there's no help. You're on your own. What can I say? I mean, I'm just telling you guys the way it is. And probably within a month or 2 of the power being out, it would be the end of the world as we know it. Just the power grid being down. It's because we've put all of our hopes, based all of our dreams, on a modern, technologically advanced society. And if it fails us for one reason or another, we would just be in a total mess. And now they're inventing these things. These things, these new weapon systems that are really old weapon systems that could really take us out. Pop, 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 and the next thing you know, we're all in the dark with no way out. Are you preparing personally, on your personal level, on a personal basis? Are you preparing for what might be some sort of eventual astronomical problem that you never saw coming, and most people don't see coming? Thank you guys for listening to my show. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye-bye.